then maybe one last question. What is the biggest risk in 2025?
I think the biggest risk is that the market is currently pricing in Trump doing all these things. Biggest risk is one, if we just don't see that, period. And then two, if we don't see that until 2026. I think those are, in my opinion, two of the biggest risks currently. But we are seeing Trump do this as he just, it's rumored that he's going to put Paul Atkins as the head of the SEC. He
Yeah.
said he would fire Gary Gensler on day one. Gary Gensler already decided to resign on day one. And we have a very crypto-friendly person coming in as the head of the SEC. In fact, he's on the board of directors of a crypto tokenization company. I'm just throwing that out there.
Any other risk? That's a very good one, and I totally agree with you. Maybe the market is a bit too euphoric, and we're anticipating change happen too quickly, which might backfire. That's absolutely true. Any other risks that we see in the market?
Yeah, I think one risk that is basically a black swan event, but it has always happened in a bull market. I hate to be the party pooper. I'm sure you guys agree with me. The security risk that a breach happens that would shake the confidence of all of these newcomers in this market, and they would be spooked into withdrawing all their assets. So that kind of risk is also there. That's why our role here is very important, educating people, and education now is more important than ever, especially for all these newcomers.
I think it's a double-edged sword, but Michael
Yeah.
have a risk here.
I agree.
He's one of the largest holders now of Bitcoin, and the amount of convertible debt that he is switching into Bitcoin might lead him to become an automatic selling pressure on the asset if the stock price of Master starts falling. It will be like the Luna to an extent of...
I actually have a counterpoint to that, though. So the way Michael Saylor has financially engineered this setup is that the amount of fees he has to pay on this debt is basically the revenue that MicroStrategy is generating from their business intelligence software. So it may seem like a huge risk, but like he's making, like their company is making a lot of money. So he's able to pay that down. So the liquidation risk, yeah, it is a real risk, but I don't think it's as crazy as people on crypto Twitter have been making it out to be, just because the company is generating a lot of money from their business intelligence software, and it's more than enough to pay down the debt that they have.
Yeah, no, it's a good counterpoint.
There's also this main character risk, right? We discussed this in the research team. Like every bull cycle, the main character is getting taken out. And obviously we saw this with Do Kwon. We've seen this with SBF in the last cycle. And yeah, if someone rises to become the face and kind of the main character of the industry, it always makes me nervous. Is it a good analysis? Fundamentally, maybe not, but it's more of a sentiment-driven point.
The last thing also is the Fed just acting too late and not pushing on the brakes fast enough. I think we're already seeing this contradiction in how the speakers, like the Fed chairs, are contradicting themselves to a certain point. Some of them are very dovish, some of them are very hawkish. So it seems like there isn't really a general consensus. And if things escalate in terms of another geopolitical conflict, even though it's less likely with Trump being in power, just seeing how things played out in his last presidency, I don't think that will be the case, but it is something that we should keep in mind for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you, Kareem. I think they're different in their differences in tone from dovish and a little bit more bullish come from the fact that the market, I think it is still a bit of a turbulent market with some areas for concern. I think Adrian touched upon the risks coming from the German government a few weeks ago on an analyst call separately, but the European economy isn't completely out of the waters yet, neither is in the US. And of course, we had the news yesterday about South Korea and the martial law being activated. It doesn't seem as severe as first initially thought out, but it still is a risk in the market. And I think because equities have also been on an absolute tear throughout the whole year, we may actually be a little bit in an overpriced area potentially. And any kind of market downturn, economic downturn would potentially amplify that fact.